Welcome to the Strangers on the Way podcast. I'm so excited and honored to have today's guest, Jacki Mjoen, with us today. I met Jacki a couple years ago. I'm pretty sure you had like a ton of middle school and teenage girls around you at our church, and it was so neat to just watch them look at you and to see how you saw them and loved them. And um, yeah, and as I've just gotten to know you and kind of witness your story from afar, I'm amazed at your fierceness and strength and courage. And so, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Welcome. And could you share a little bit about who you are?
Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. Lauren, thanks so much for having me and allowing me to share my story a bit. I am Jacki Mjoen. What am I, 28 years old now? Getting closer to 30. I am a brain cancer warrior. Just finished treatment for brain cancer, stage 2 glioma, and I am a full-time 7th grade math teacher at the school that I also graduated from.
You graduated from there too.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, full circle.
Yeah, super cool. It allows me to really connect with the kids in a deeper way because I walked the halls that they walked.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. That's so fun. How does it feel different now from when you were a student? Obviously, the world's changed quite a bit, but
Yes. Well, first of all, the desks are different, right? Like they're all tables now and flexible seating,
Mhm.
and all the chalkboards are gone, of course. So it's all whiteboards now, but the flexible seating is really nice just because nobody wants to sit in the rock hard desks that we had, like that were
Yes.
like independent and you couldn't fit anything anywhere.
Yes. I know.
So it's definitely different in that way.
Yeah, that's so fun. Do you find like
Yeah.
the work that you do with students is a bit more engaging, interactive, hands-on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. More support with them, like up and moving around the room too, versus, versus just sitting in the class, like in their chair the whole time. Like we're so straying away from that in education, and good, as we should, because
Yeah.
learning is interactive, and there's failure and there's growth and there's failure again. And so welcoming that into our spaces is super important too. So yeah, it's definitely different.
And did you
Yeah.
want to be a teacher since you were a little girl?
Yeah. I was like literally dropped into my sweet little heart as like seventh, eighth grade. I just had such a feeling that I was supposed to come back.
Mm.
Um, and here I am.
Oh,
So that
wow.
was that was a God born dream for sure.
I love the people that kind
Yeah.
of know it, like it's in their DNA when they're young. Um,
Yeah.
they like go after it. It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then mathematics.
Yes.
Always loved math.
No, I did not. I actually was the kid that despised math and only really liked it when I fully understood it, which I mean makes sense. Nobody likes to be in the math pit
Hmm.
of, not understanding math. That's not a fun space to be in. So I only really enjoyed it when it clicked, but I have had too many math teachers the class revolved around shame and not knowing something because I was supposed to know it already. And
Mm.
so I wanted to be that teacher that welcomed whoever was in my room and stand in the gap for kids who walk in with already in their brains that they are stupid at math, they are not good at math. I wanted to be that teacher that reframed math for them.
Mm.
So that's why I chose it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love that. Is it your like favorite subject now then, or is it more because you wanted to instill that?
I think it's still more just because I want to instill that. Um, yeah, I really want to take that label away from them and rewrite it as they head on into more intense math classes. And math is not everybody's path, but everybody can do math.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of stigma out there that it's like, oh, I'm not a math person kind of thing. And I think it's like maybe, but also you can. So I like to really make sure that the kids know that, even when they're struggling.
Mhm. Oh, I understand
Yeah.
so much. I remember
Yeah.
seeing an Instagram post of yours and you had a mirror and you had all these statements around. Could you tell
Yeah.
me about that and how you came up with that idea? I just think it's so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So those are little affirmations that I put around my mirror, and that's super big in education now, especially putting them around the mirror or like your classroom mirror or the classroom doorway, just to reaffirm truths about kids. And
Yeah.
I love the Enneagram, and I wanted to pull like truths from each number. Not that the kids know Enneagram or
Yeah.
are in that, but I just wanted to pull truths from those 9 numbers. So that's what's around my mirror. And so I really like looking at that to also reaffirm myself on
Yeah.
hard days too.
Yes.
So yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah, it's cool.
That's so beautiful. Some friends and I were just talking about putting up like post-its in our house, just with those
Yeah.
kind of reminders of who we are. Um, and then I read a devotional this week and they said the same thing. And so I'm like, oh, it just feels like it seems to be coming up more and more. So I love that.
Yes.
I felt like, I don't know if you remember any of them offhand, but I felt like they were really creative, like kind of unique, different, different types. I don't,
Oh, the one I remember is my softness is my strength.
hmm.
Um,
I love that.
yeah, that's the only one that's coming to mind right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
But
that's awesome.
yeah,
And then,
they were really fun to put
yeah,
up.
so good. Um, how did you get interested in the Enneagram, and what did it like do for you in the
Yeah.
understanding of yourself and others?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I think, well, it was becoming more and more of a thing. It became super popular. And we have a family friend who's super into it. So I took the test and oh my gosh, did I feel incredibly seen. Like just all of my like good and bad was completely exposed, but held with such grace and love just because the Enneagram is such a spectrum of healthy, unhealthy, like where we swing. And so that felt freeing too. It wasn't like you were bound to certain characteristics. It's just where do you swing in stress and in integration and all that. And so it just gave me language
Yeah.
to speak to myself. And then also being married, it gave me language to communicate to my spouse and vice versa.
Mhm.
I mean, it has completely changed the way we do relationship now with the words and where our little red flags start showing up in our specific numbers about, oh, we're starting to be in stress now. So how can we care and love for each other in that?
Mm.
So it's really offered a lot of insight and I'm still digging into it. I'm
Yeah.
still there because there's just it feels like a bottomless pit, which is so good because there's always more to
Yes.
be learning about the number that you are and childhood wounds and like all this cool stuff. Oh,
Mhm.
so good.
I love that. What number are you and what number is your husband?
Yeah, so I'm a 1. They call it the perfectionist, or there's another more positive word for it. Reformer. That's what they call it too.
Mhm.
And my husband is a 2, which is the helper.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. That's a
Yeah.
cool one, though. Like power team.
I know, right?
Mhm.
Reformer and helper, it's good.
It
Yeah.
is. I feel like you guys are world changers.
Well,
Literally.
thanks.
Yeah.
Sometimes we like to think so.
Yeah. It's so fun how that stuff's wired in us, like, oh, to the
Oh my
core.
gosh,
And
right?
yeah, to do it like complementing each other in that way. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
What have you learned most from marriage and what have you learned most from being a teacher?
Good questions. The thing I learned most from marriage is that it is the most refining relationship you will ever find yourself in. It is the relationship that gently can hold up a mirror to yourself, um, and which is so necessary in order to keep looking more and more like Jesus.
Mm.
It also is the most healing thing as well. Um, you talk about coming from childhoods where there wasn't secure attachment as a kid, and how a marriage can offer a secure attachment to rewrite the
Mm,
not secure attachment that you had as a child. Um, and that then can break chains, generational chains, and reset the groundwork for new generations.
yeah.
So I just think that that is like God's superpower,
Mhm.
like
Yes.
over here on this crazy planet. Like
Yeah.
that marriage is a chain breaker if you let it, and if you press in. Um, and so that's been cool.
Mm.
Uh, the question was thing I learned from teaching too.
Yeah, as well.
What little control I actually have,
Yeah.
because that's me at my core. I want to control everything, but I really don't. Um, and the gosh, the refinement that the kids bring me,
Mm,
like that our world actually needs middle schoolers more than we think,
mm,
and more than they get credit for, because they are the ones that show up without any masks on. They show up just really as they are. And I think adults need to do that more.
mm.
Um, and so I think it's taught me to not put a face on.
Yeah.
And when I don't, the kids really respond well to that.
Mm.
So when I practice what I preach to them, then they really respond well
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
They say that about Gen Z. I think, I don't know if they're in Gen Z or Gen Alpha, but like just the craving for authenticity. And they can see through inauthenticity or
Uh-huh.
and they'll call it out. And I think that's a beautiful gift because yeah, to have your kids.
Yeah.
It's vulnerable, but it's also like the only way you're known. And they really seem to get that and respond to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good. I love that. What else are you seeing in this generation that's good?
Oh gosh, their pursuit for mental health. Like, come on. I want to go back and redo middle school with them,
Yeah.
because they will take a mental health day and they prioritize, hey, I need to go talk to somebody. Like, yes, let me sign your pass to go see that counselor. Like, you don't need to be doing math right now, all distressed. Like, go talk to somebody
Yeah.
about something that just happened at lunch. Like, that's way more important. So to see them really striving to make space for that is incredible.
I love that.
Yeah.
I was up at my college a couple weekends ago and I was talking to the dean of students and I said, what's different about this class like than when I was there like 15 years ago? And he's like, well, your class, like by this period of time, there were a lot of like alcohol things and parties and like that's kind of what they mostly focus on. And he said, it's not like that anymore. This generation's not really drinking, at least at this campus. But he said, but the mental health and the conflict resolution, and that's like top of focus. And I thought that was fascinating and how that's shifting. And but how beautiful to like create children who are going after wholeness
Yeah.
at such a young age. It is really remarkable. And yeah, so good.
Yeah. And not running from the way that they're made,
Mm,
or like stuffing it, because that doesn't help. It'll just squeak out somewhere else,
yeah.
and they're not about that.
Mm,
Yeah. And I applaud them for that.
yeah, so good. Ah,
Yeah.
well, I know you've had quite a journey over the past 2 or so years.
Yeah.
Could you share a bit about that?
Yeah. So in April of 2022, I had an MRI, and it was just following up on a tiny tumor, insignificant. And then we were just following up on it. And doctor calls me that night and says, we found something completely unrelated. It's the size of a golf ball and it's on the left side of your head. And we have no idea what it is. And that was the night that like forever changed my life. And my husband and I laid on the kitchen floor laughing and crying and praying and laughing and crying and praying some more. And from there, it was a whole mess of things related to cancer. And so they didn't know what it was. So I had to go in and get it removed. And it came back as a grade 2 glioma brain cancer. The surgeon was able to remove 70% of it, but that 30% meant I then had to do cancer treatment. And so from that point after surgery, I had to do radiation. And I was still teaching during this time too. So it was a hot mess of getting a cancer diagnosis and then also trying to show up for the kids. And I wrestled with telling them about it. And I felt that hiding it like dampened how I showed up in the room. Because just as much as I want them to walk in as they are, I wasn't honoring that for myself. So I had to tell them. And it was so sweet the way they held my story because I'd be writing a math problem on the board during radiation. And at this point, the brain fog is real. And the problem would be so wrong. And it would get quiet behind me. And I'd be like, oh, something's off. And I would just hear a kid in the back go, it's okay, Miss Mjoen, it's just the radiation.
Oh,
And so they were my biggest cheerleaders and champions in the middle of it. Like I actually needed them more than they needed me in the middle of all that. So it was radiation, then it was egg retrieval, which was incredibly hard with the shots. And then I filled with water too. So they had to drain me after the retrieval. But it was successful. They have 28 eggs on ice. So that was a huge win. My husband says we can make a whole classroom. And I'm like, yeah, we probably could. We probably could.
yes.
Not that we want to or should. So
Oh,
that was good. And then I had to get into chemo. And so chemo is for brain cancer is oral. So it was just 2 pills a night for 5 nights. Usually it was the first week of the month, and then I was off the rest of the month. And at this point, I was just doing on 1 month and then off the next, and then on another month and then off the next. So it was just like every other month I was in treatment. So I was teaching on and off. But then with the new oncologist that I got, I had to actually do 6 more rounds. So the initial plan was to do just 6. And then at round 5, I was told you actually have 6 more after the first 6. So that was a shift. And then the oncologist was like, you have to do them back to back. Like your rounds have to be back to back. So I had to pull away from the classroom, which was really hard. And I think I really fought that because I think the classroom has a lot of my identity as well. Like, who am I without teaching? And it comes to find out I'm like actually a lot of other things.
oh,
So it was so of God to pull me. Like, I got to pull you out because you're not hearing me in here.
mm,
And it was probably the best thing ever because then I found myself writing, which then just gave me so much life. And I never thought that could be because my classroom gave me life.
mm.
So that was super cool. And I finished treatment and I got my doubles. I went to Claire's and got my doubles. I got my second ear piercing because I just needed to feel like a baddie after finishing cancer treatment. So I went and did that, and it was the best day ever.
I love that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a long haul and lots of physical pain. And the Bible really talks about like how the soul groans, like, and oh man, have I never related to that more than in cancer treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it was like really, it's like really not supposed to be this way. Just this random cancer diagnosis. It was like I couldn't have eaten enough blueberries, to stop this thing, and yeah, the question people always ask, why did bad things happen to good people? I'm like, none of us are immune
Yeah.
from the brokenness over here. Like, so we just keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like? Like, how did you from the initial, like, how did you navigate that emotionally? And
Yeah.
yeah, how did you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was honestly just riding the cancer waves, and people call it cancer waves because that's exactly what it is. It's your highs are really high and your lows are incredibly low. And so nothing feels stable. Um, and so I just really tried my best to let those feelings take up space and ride them as they came, and took noticing of when I was feeling high or when I was feeling low, and to care for myself in both situations. My husband and I left a really great news MRI scan, right? But then by the time we pulled in the driveway, I had fallen from cloud nine. And I was just on the ground again because it's just like, well, I still have cancer in my head. So it's learning how to hold both, like good and bad at the same time. The fragileness of life, like, really puts you in touch with your humanity. And yeah, lots of therapy, baths, all
Yeah.
the self-care stuff. um Jesus time was super important. The writing really helped, like getting it out. It was like just this soul dump. Like, I
Hmm.
would go sit in a coffee shop and write, and then when I would leave, I would feel different than when I walked in. Like, I wasn't carrying the backpack anymore.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And the writing was like I was spilling my guts to Jesus. It's like this suffering. I now understand the way you suffered more tangibly, which is really sweet, because without cancer, I don't think I ever would have experienced that. So it drew me closer to him, but yet there it was, my reality was still true, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel
Yeah.
like, I think sometimes with pain, it's harder to connect, like, or even
Mm,
sense what God might be saying? Or did you find like that He was speaking to you in this time? Or, yeah.
yeah, super tangibly.
Wow.
Like, it was almost like I was at my wit's end. There was nothing more that I can do. And so he was it. Like,
Mm,
he was it. Like, he was the only thing um that could walk with me in this. And being such a doer and overfunctioner that I am, it was such a sweet stripping of all that,
mm,
like the cancer diagnosis, so that I could walk more closely to him in in his sufferings and in mine. Like, so I found that I could hear him more. I had so many, before any new thing, I would really sit and pray, and there was so many little things that he would drop my way. Like, you know, it was one of the ones was like, wait and you see what I carried you through. Wait and see where I carry you to.
mm,
So there was just all these little encouraging things that he would send my way, and or verses. Um, with starting chemo, my mother-in-law, she sent me a verse. It was like, they pick up snakes and drink heavy poison,
mm,
but they will not be harmed. And poison was a big word that I was clinging to with chemo. I was so unsettled by having to force poison into my body to help this thing in my head. And that verse just realigned everything. Like, I'm literally putting poison in my body, and yet, like, I will not be harmed. And
yeah.
I was like, okay. Like, it was just the thing that he would tell me that I could keep on going and moving forward.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so powerful. Um,
Yeah.
how did your community show up for you in this?
Yeah. It was a crazy amount of love from every direction, everywhere. My school, my students, like, they had so many fundraisers for me at the
Mm,
school. They had like this color run every mile for Miss Mjoen. Teachers sending me stuff, Grubhub gift cards left and right, DoorDash. Ryan and I could always, like, DoorDash a meal when, like, my appetite was funked. He didn't feel like cooking. So it was just loads of care and love and prayers, and like little texts to keep my spirits up too, like stupid texts that would make me giggle. Um, People dropping stuff off at my door and just letting me know something was there. So the prayer team at the chapel, like before going into brain surgery, and I just felt like there was an army behind me the whole time. And that was really cool just because that allowed me to keep going. Um, yeah, because it was just with every next phase, I was always updating people
Yeah.
because I wanted to feel the army behind me. So, and they never failed to show up.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
amazing. I always love on the episodes to give like uh ask people for words of wisdom. And so like if someone entered this season where they got a diagnosis like this, what would you tell them?
Mm, mm. Uh, Number one, name your boundaries.
Hmm.
I think what people on the outside don't realize is that by showing up at a cancer patient's door is actually asking the cancer patient to do something for you. So name your boundaries, like dropping off food feels like love, but then they need to drop it in like a container outside and not ring your doorbell and not have require anything of you. Um, and I didn't realize the importance of that until you're in it. And then you feel the expectation of other people for you to set the tone in which they should feel.
Mm.
And that that's not okay. So really getting clear on what feels like love and what feels like an expectation and drawing that line. And then the second thing is just to ride the cancer waves. I feel like that's the biggest invitation because your mental health is also a part of your healing journey in kicking this thing.
Yeah.
And so ride them, just ride the waves and care for yourself in the middle of it and pull in your team where you can feel the most safe to ride those waves in,
Mhm.
and not feel like you have to put on a certain face for the other person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And what are you most looking forward to in the future?
Oh gosh, I think just how God is just going to keep using my cancer story to draw me closer to Him, but then also draw others in through the story. I mean, our stories are the thing that links us all.
Yeah.
And so, and we have a hope. And while there were days I did not feel that hope, it felt like darkness had won. Um, it doesn't. And so I think I'm just excited for the way God's going to keep showing up in this cancer story and with my 78 pages of writing that need to be put into the hands of somebody who needs to read it and be encouraged that you're not alone. There is a very real God who's with you
Mm-hmm.
through and through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, just as we close, would you mind just praying a blessing over our listeners who
Mm,
might be going through a hard season or might be going through the mountaintop season, but whatever you feel led, I'd just love to have you bless them as we close.
yeah. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Hmm. Heavenly Father, I thank you for just this time with Lauren, to share all of the ways in which you're at work. And for those listening, God, I pray right now that tangibly they would sense your spirit on them, God, that they would feel embraced, that there would be a warmth, God, um, and that they would feel that they could see and notice you as they go about their day or their evening, Jesus, that they would be in tune with the places and spaces that you're drawing them near, God. And that they would feel the invitation to share, to be vulnerable. God, it's in vulnerability that you are also there. And so, God, I thank you for just the ears that hear. I bless the listeners, Jesus, and their stories and where they find themselves, God. There is nowhere that you won't go. So, God, I just pray that they would feel your love and just the way that you are working in their story, God, and that they would find connections. Yeah, and just get excited for what you're up to, even in the middle of it being hard, God, that they would stay curious. Because a posture of curiosity only opens doors. So I pray that you would keep their hearts soft and curious towards themselves, towards the people in their lives around them, and to the story that's unfolding before them. So thank you, Jesus. I pray a blessing over them in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jackie. You are remarkable.
Yes. Thanks for having me.